Hello, and welcome back to the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Alongside me, as always, is
Jay Randall.
Mr. J. Randall.
Jay Randall. Hear my creaky seat.
Yeah. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about the Chicagoland fishing show that just took place this past weekend. Jay and I were both in the booth with Rocktown Adventures. Jay was there supporting Jackson Kayaks, talking to people about all the new Jackson boats. And I was there, obviously, talking about the wonderful bonafide, but also talking about other boats as well. But, it was a great show, man. I know we both talked to some of the listeners that stopped in the booth, and I think that was definitely cool to put faces with names and, even talk with some of the guys that we hadn't talked to previously. So, I know one gentleman in particular, I don't want to name any names, but he started listening to the podcast right about the time me and Scott had started it, and he was just getting into kayak fishing. And it's pretty humbling to say that he's learned a lot from just listening to the podcast once a week. And whether it be rigging up his kayak, doing techniques, things like that, he said he's just taken a lot in, and it seemed to be a consensus among a lot of the guys. So thank you for the kind words, guys, and thanks for stopping in the booth. We definitely appreciate you. So
Yeah, it was cool seeing all these guys, meeting a bunch of different people, and people that are actually listening to the podcast. That was kind of cool. It, like Brian saying, it's nice to get a face to the name, and actually have some dialogue, on the side about certain subjects, and just kind of shooting the breeze, so to speak.
yeah, I know one guy came up to me and he's like, "You're Brian, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, how you doing?" Shook his hand. He's like, "You got the podcast, huh?" I was like, "Yeah, I got a kayak fishing podcast. We talk about, kayaks, fishing, all this stuff in general." He's like, "I know, I listen. Last episode was Spencer Jones. You guys were talking about kayaks on the roof of a Prius and like going off naming all like the side notes from the episode." I was like, "Whoa, I wasn't doubting you, dude." Like,
Yeah.
but I think he was just trying to give me a hard time. But it was definitely cool, man. I think that was probably the best part of the show for me. I don't know about
Yeah.
you, but I think that kind of hit home for me, and it was very humbling. But it
Yeah, I love the shows, man. I think that's that for me. That's probably the my favorite part is just doing the shows, meeting people, talking. Um, again, just kind of getting a lay of the land with everybody, just figuring out where they're all coming from, what they're interested in, and they get to know us too more as just regular guys.
Yeah, right, right,
Um,
right.
I enjoy that exchange all the time. I mean, and that facility is huge.
Yeah,
I mean that I think it's like the Renaissance
Renaissance
Convention
Hotel.
Center,
Well, it's considered the Schaumburg
the
Convention
Schaumburg
Center,
Convention Center. Yeah,
but it's connected to the Renaissance Hotel. I stayed there one night because I had some plan,
baller,
some plans
baller.
Friday evening. I will say, man, that hotel room was sweet. The hotel in general was nice. I don't know if you walked over into there at all, but um, it's beautiful. They definitely did it right. So, and
Yeah, ever since they moved the show over there,
yeah,
I pretty much I frequented the show like plenty of times, and I walked around it. I mean, that is truly a five-star location. And they have anything and everything. There's marble upstairs, and
yeah,
I know my son was like, he's like, Dad, he's like, I went everywhere around here. He's like, this place is really, really nice.
yeah, yeah,
He's like,
yeah,
I was on every floor.
yeah. Yeah, and I will say, I mean, I stayed there the one night, and even the pricing wasn't horrible. I think I paid like $130 $30 or something. And, I got valet parking, all that stuff, so I didn't have to fight the crowds in the parking lot, so that was kind of nice. But, yeah, it was super cool. Tons of space. There was a lot of exhibitors there. I know we got to walk around and chat with a few, which we'll get into in a second. But, the Rocktown booth, I think it was pretty successful for Rocktown. It was cool because there was a lot of interest in a lot of different boats, and it was not necessarily folks that were already in kayaks, but people that were interested in getting into it. I talked to a lot of people that, had a lot of questions and were like a little weary of getting into kayaks and kayak fishing and things of that nature. And, people were kind of taken back, I think, by how far the fishing kayaks, so to speak, have come. I mean, in the booth we had Jackson Big Rig, Jay's boat, Jackson Coosa, the bonafide SS-127, the New Canoe Frontier 12, New Canoe Flint, the Old Town Topwater, and the Blue Sky, and the Perception 12-footer with the pedal drive. I forget, man. I don't pay attention to Perception very much, but it's a good entry-level pedal drive kayak, But I would say, I think we talked about it at, the one day. I think out of all the boats that I just named off, the Blue Sky got the most attention. But
yeah, I think the Blue Sky blew the doors off a lot of people. My favorite part was bringing over the guys from the boats.
Yeah, a lot of them.
All of the boats. Yeah, and they were like, "Whoa, what's that?" Like, I really like that.
Well,
and I was like, everyone's like, they didn't know what to make of it, but they liked it.
Yeah, well, and I will say, like, the guys that were super interested in it were the older guys,
Yes.
They're like, when we think of a kayak, we have to sit down and, like, sitting in a kayak and then getting up when you're at your old age, that's hard. And that seat on the Blue Sky, everybody was like, all the old guys were like, I could fish out of this. I could totally fish out of this. I don't have to fish from shore, or I don't have to call Joe to go out on his boat or something like that. They were like, I could definitely do this, And I thought that
couple that with, you could step right off a dock and you don't have to worry about it flopping, like, not like in a kayak where you got to step kind of in the middle and all that stuff. These guys were like, oh, you can just step like right on the side. Like, yeah, it's not gonna flip. I was like, it's very sturdy.
Yeah, no, and I think that was the big thing, man. And I thought that was cool. I know my old man and my uncle, who, both of them are, in their 60s, and they're talking about each getting one, because they can use it where they live. And, they were just, I had told the old man about it several times, and he's like, well, I want to see it. I want to demo it. And I'm like, calm down. Just come to the fishing show, But, they were both totally blown away. And, my dad's got a knee that has been replaced. The other one should be replaced. My uncle's got back problems. So with that seat and everything, it would have been perfect for him. So I think they're definitely going to order one. So we're already in the works of that. So, but
and truth be told, too, I mean, for me this year, that was actually a toss up between the Big Rig and the Blue Sky, because I was like, I could get into either one, but it made more sense to get the Big Rig because I would, it wouldn't have fit on, or the Blue Sky wouldn't have fit on my trailer, because since I added the second tier to it,
right.
Otherwise I was like, oh, I would have been all over that thing. I mean, not that you can't put it in the bed of your truck, but it just didn't make sense for me to get it yet. But man, from being on it though already, earlier in the year 2018, I mean, it's, if you haven't been on one, you got to test this thing out, because, if you're not, fully vested in getting a kayak, like, you need to consider the Blue Sky, especially if you're considering something high end, because this thing adds a lot of dynamic to the sport of fishing. Not only that, it's multi purpose in the sense of, if you're an avid outdoorsman, in the sense of like you're a bird watcher or you're nature, you're like photographer, maybe you're filming. There's a lot of pluses to the blue sky for these things alone, because it gives you such a large platform to work with. And it's just the ease of movement is pretty astounding. But that's what I mean. That's what I actually noticed about it when I was on it. I fished a little from it. I mean, you can fish from it, and with the E-Flex motor, it's even better. But when you're like filming somebody, you
Right.
have it's a lot easier to maneuver that thing and to stay with somebody. Plus, the way you're sitting and just like your posture, it's almost natural for that type of an environment. I mean, I think that's like something a lot of people don't take into effect, or into account. I mean, you can take it down the river, you can go camping with this thing if you wanted to. It's no different than the kayaks. It's got the flex drive on it, so anything that's an FD, you can run this thing ashore, and you don't have to worry about jacking up the prop. But yeah, I mean, it's a well versatile um, type of platform that a lot of people just haven't seen yet, like in person. I think when you see it in person, you'll really, I mean, you'll really get the wheels turning. I mean, it's not a kayak, it's not a boat, it's a lot of things. So, I mean, I dig it. It's just fun to be on, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I know there was quite a few guys that came through the booth and they were like, man, I actually just wanted to see this thing up close and personal. I've seen pictures, video, things like that. And not only that, but, shout out to the KBL guys that were in the booth. It was nice meeting a bunch of you guys, and look forward to fishing with you guys this year. But some of those guys were like, man, this thing's like a fishing machine, you know?
Oh yeah.
Some of the other guys were like, that's not a kayak, but, it is what it is, buddy. But,
Yeah.
you know,
But it's
yeah,
not supposed to be either. You know what I
well,
mean? It's people got to realize it's like, yeah, I
right,
mean, you can't compare it. It's not the same.
right,
It's just something new, you
right,
know?
right. But, I mean, like you said, with that E-Drive coming out, which turns that thing into an electric motor, it's just, that thing is going to be, it's going
Yep.
to be killer for a lot of guys. And like I said, I think the biggest audience for that boat is going to be the older crowd, because they're like, I can do this. Like, I won't have to get way down in a seat and have a rough time standing up out of it and this and that.
Yep.
And I thought that was cool, man. I'd like to see some of the older guys getting into it that can't afford the, $80,000 boat. And not only that, being able to jump into tournaments and stuff, man.
Hmm.
They got the time. Most of them are retired. So that'd be a cool thing for them to do. It'd be, I mean, I love fishing with old dudes because they got the best fishing stories, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it would be cool to hang with some of those guys at some of the fishing tournaments and stuff like that. So yeah, it was definitely interesting. I mean, and
Yeah. They're
go
so
ahead, man.
I was gonna say, like, the other thing too that I noticed is that, dare I say it, the bonafide got a lot of attention. Like, some people came right into that booth and they were like, that one's for you, buddy.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
buddy.
they just streamlined, like, they're like, oh, that's what I'm looking for right there. I
Yeah,
mean, these guys already knew, and they're like all
yeah.
sweating it. They're like, man, this is great.
I
And truth be told, when I'm helping out in the booth, it's like I don't show any bias. I mean, I'm always like, hey,
sure.
hey, this is a good boat because I know you use it a lot,
And
and I
yeah,
see it in action. I mean, I know it's a good boat, so I mean, I'm showing these guys a bona fide just like I would anything
sh-
else. But yeah, I mean, there was some genuine like interest in that boat.
yeah. I will say, I'm the same way as you. I mean, yeah, I love Bonafide just as much as you love Jackson. But, I went through because I had a lot of people looking at Frontiers. And I had experience with that boat because I fished out of Scott's boat. So there was a lot of going back and forth, guys, either A, already knew about the bonafide and wanted to see it up close and personal, or they were on the fence between bonafide or new canoe or bonafide and Jackson. And, like I told everybody that came in the booth, there's pros and cons to every boat. Every
Yeah.
boat is going to have something you don't like. Every boat's going to have a bunch of stuff that you do like. It's all going to
Mm-hmm.
be a personal preference. And, I told so many people that it was just like, look, whatever I like doesn't mean that that's exactly what you're going to like. Um, what I had suggested to a lot of people is come out to a demo day, come paddle them all, and then you can definitely compare. Um, it was cool. I met a few guys that already had bonafides, and it was great because, yeah, I'm there representing Rocktown, right? And I had people I was talking to about the boats. They thought I was just a salesman. I'm like, I don't even work for these guys. But then some of the guys that already had bonafides were in the booth, and they're like, look, I'll tell you right now, like, this is what I like about it. This, and that. And, you know, people were like, oh, looking at me like, I guess he's not lying to us.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking I'm there as a salesman, which obviously wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Um, but it was funny. Like, I know a lot of guys that were working in the booth. Anytime somebody had questions about a bonafide, they would look at me and be like, Brian, come over here. And I think I was able to, um, tell people the reality of certain things that they had questions on, um, or point out certain things that they didn't know, like being able to put your rods in the hull of the boat,
Mm-hmm.
the seat height on it, how it's got three different seat heights, and being able to be rigged up with a power pole already, just like the Jackson, and things like that. So it was certainly cool, and I know you got a bunch of questions about your big rig because it was the same thing. If anybody had a question about a big rig, I'm like, let me get Jay. Hold on one second,
Yeah.
or I'd go and grab. Shout out to Frankie Briggs.
Yeah.
He's another
Mr.
Jackson guy.
Briggs.
It was very cool meeting him. He's a character, man. I had a lot
Yeah.
of lot of
He's something
laughs.
else, man.
Yeah,
He's fun.
a lot of laughs. Looking forward to fishing with him this year, and I even talked about maybe having him on the podcast, and he said he'd be interested. So
Yeah, he'd be a riot. He'd be a
yeah,
good addition for
he
sure.
he's a character, man. But again, he's an older guy, man, and he's got some
Yeah.
great stories. I don't know what it is about
Yeah.
you old guys, but
Well, even like I mean, off the subject, even when I was shooting more 3D archery and doing tournaments, I was always hanging around with the old dudes. I mean, those are the guys that had the most experience. They were the most consistent, and they could actually critique you and um, give you ideas like how to improve. I mean, most of these guys were like national and, like national and state champions. I mean, that I was shooting with. So I mean, those old guys, man, don't count them out.
yeah,
Those older guys, they know what's up. They got some, they got funny stories and they got true stories and they
sure.
got some, they got intel.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Well, I mean, I can attest to it, man. I've been hanging out with the older crowd since I was like 16. But um, you know, like Scotty Purrs. But
Yeah, I knew you were gonna
it's
say, I was gonna
it's
say perps.
yeah, yeah. He called me Sunday when I was at the show. He said, "What are you doing?" He's wanting me to go up to Mille Lacs ice fishing. I'm like, dude, I'm at the show. I got to work this week. Like,
Yeah.
give me a couple weeks. We're going. But yeah, it was a good time, man. I know there was a lot of interest in the boats we love. We sold some boats. I know we got a lot of people coming out to demo boats this spring, and not only that, but you know, um, our good friends at Rocktown. A lot of people don't realize that they do other things than just sell kayaks. I was talking to a couple couples that were in the booth, and they were talking about wanting to do like 2 or 3 day kayak trips, and I'm like, well, we actually do that at
Hmm.
Rocktown. They do some river trips down the Wisconsin River. They're talking about doing the Kickapoo River in the Wisconsin area. They do hiking trips. Like right now, like our busy thing at Rocktown is snowshoe trips and cross-country ski trips. And, you know, a lot of people were surprised, you know, because we're there at a fishing show showing off fishing kayaks. So it was cool too. I mean, you know, our goal is always just getting people outdoors, and it was cool. There was a couple of young kids that came through, and I'm like, what do you think, buddy? You know, you could do this, couldn't you? And I forget who I was talking to, but you know, they were taking their young son out in a kayak, and they just loved being out there paddling around. And I said, my daughter's the same way, and I think it's just the independent thing that they can be out on the water in their own boat, you know, paddling around, have that experience. And you know, it was very cool to hear people's different stories and backgrounds and stuff like that. I mean, like you said, just talking to people at the fishing shows is what makes those shows awesome for us, you know. So it was very cool, very cool. So
Yeah, it was funny. I think it's important to point out too, like, you know, Rocktown, like Brian had mentioned, you know, not only are they a kayak shop, but they also do cross country ski, snowshoeing, hiking. Another thing they do, and they're big into, is kind of like off grid type camping,
yeah,
or like boondocking. They actually hold some cooking, I guess, like little expos at
yeah.
their location. That's probably the wrong word, but
It's
they ba- they
I
basically show you
yeah
how to use the stuff they have.
yeah, I attended one. Was it in December? I think. Yeah, it was in December. Backcountry backpacking cooking demos. You know, with
Yeah.
the little single burner stoves, and
Yep.
you know, they do a couple of those a year. So if you're interested in that, you know, and not only that, the nice thing about that is when you're doing like float trips in the kayak, you know,
Yeah.
you
There you go.
keeping everything condensed. And you know, and the reason why I went is for the fishing tournaments. You know, like, yeah, I got my
Hmm.
2 burner camping stove, but if I can have things more compact, cheaper, easier way of doing things, like, I was all for it. And I will say that at that demo, the guy showed us how to make bread in 20 minutes over a little 1 burner camping stove thing. It was pretty impressive.
Oh,
Yeah, like,
yeah. I don't even know how to do that.
yeah, it was cool, man.
Not that I need any more bread,
Yeah,
but
well, you know, yeah, but if, you know, you're out paddling all day, you know, that's a source of energy, man. So,
yeah,
you know, it's cool that they offer all those different programs. And yeah, you know, I can go on talking about Rocktown forever, you know, but
yeah.
yeah,
No, they you know, they serve a purpose out in Rockford. I mean, like, you know, we're up north. You can't sell kayaks like all year round. I mean, the interest just won't be there.
sure,
So you got to be able to adapt as a shop. You know, up here you got to be multifaceted, and you got to like know your audience,
yeah,
or your demographic. You know, and out there it's, you know, up towards Rockford. I mean, you're a hop, skip, and a jump away from Wisconsin.
sure,
You know, from the border. So I mean, there's a lot to do up there, a lot of outdoor stuff. So it's kind of the perfect location, in my opinion, for a shop like that.
yeah,
You know, to be able to command the area, I guess.
absolutely. And I think one of the big things that I noticed is, like, I would say probably 70% of all the boats we sold were new kayak anglers, which I
Hmm.
thought was awesome, you know?
That's
So,
true. There were a lot of people that were rolling through there that had never considered, you know, kayaking or kayak fishing rather.
sure.
You know, so it was kind of cool to kind of introduce people to the sport, like the idea of it, and you know what you can do with it. I mean, I even offered going out with a couple of people. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
just give me a shout. You know, hit me up at the podcast, email me, you know, or hit me on Instagram, something.
Yeah.
You know, we'll make some time so you can see how it is. I mean, I even told one dude I'd bring out one of my kayaks in case you just, you know, because if you're on the fence, let's get out there and try it. I don't know,
Well,
you know,
and
kind of spread the love.
that was the thing too, is I did the same thing, and I was like, whatever boat you're thinking about getting, I'll pick up the demo boat from Rocktown, right? And here's the beauty of Rocktown when it comes to boats, real quick, is, and I told a lot of people this that came through the booth. You come out to a demo day, or you can actually rent the demo boat. And, you know, Rocktown charges $20 for the demo day. If you want to rent for a full day fishing kayak, it's like $60. You tell them ahead of time, like, hey, I'm looking at buying this boat, but I want to go try it out, make sure it's going to fit me, this and that. So I want to rent it for a day. What Rocktown will do is if you come back and you're like, all right, I want to buy this boat, they'll take the money that you put down on the rental or the demo, and they'll take that off the purchase of your boat. So you're not throwing $60 away or $20 away. It's going to the actual purchase of your boat. And that was a big thing is, you know, like I told everybody is, you know, we want to get you in the right boat. We don't want you to take a boat home just because it looks cool or whatever. And there was even people that put money down on boats where we told them, you know, they were kind of questioning it, like, is it not sure if I want this one or the other one. And we're like, look, when you come out to pick up your boat, we'll let you demo our demo boat, you know, same model, and the other one. And if you end up going with the other one, that's fine. We'll take your deposit and put it to that one. It doesn't matter. You know, we want you to be happy with the boat you purchased and not, you know, returning it and being all upset and, you know, whatever else, you know. So I think that's cool. You know, I know a lot of shops do demo days, but I don't think a lot of shops do rentals on the actual boat you want to buy, you know. So I think that's super cool that they do that. And, you know, they're flexible with it.
Yeah, and not only that too, like when you do the when you do a drift or something, they'll actually let you pick your boat.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, so I mean, you're still demoing, but you're actually going on the trip, so you can really get the full experience. I mean, I'd say to anyone, if you're really going to come try out one of these kayaks, bring your fishing rod. You know, like use it like you would normally. You know, like get out there and fish with it, see how it acts. You know, like because I mean, especially if you're new to kayak fishing, there is definitely a learning curve. It's not a big one, but I mean, it's enough where, you know, when you've got to handle a fishing rod and then also a paddle, you know, it's maneuver because I mean, now you don't have a trolling motor, you don't have that whole, you know, you can't just use your foot. You have the weirdest smirk on your face.
That's because I just remembered something.
Like I was like, I couldn't hold it anymore. All right, what do you got? What do you got?
So yeah,
I thought you were gonna crack something. Look to me.
We're recording this. This is going on YouTube. We told you guys we were going to do more of these. So no, I just remembered the one listener who came into the show booth, and he was talking about fishing a river that you fish a lot. And to me, and then he's like, I launch at this point, right? And I'm like, yep, I know exactly where you're talking about. And he's like, yeah, I caught a huge pike. And I'm like, oh yeah, where at? And he's like describing where it is, and I'm like, I had the same smirk on my face, and he's like, does Jay fish around there? And I'm like, that's Jay's secret spot. If I were you, I would not tell anybody about it. So then I was like, hey, Jay, come here. And I was like, this guy fishes in an interesting location you might want to hear about. Yeah. And he's describing it to you, and you're like, dude, that's my spot. Like,
yeah. Don't be telling anybody. I'm telling him how to take pictures over there.
Yeah. So it was.
You will die of 1,000 cuts.
It was funny, man. He's like describing it to me, and I'm like, yeah, I know the spot. Hey, Jay, come here. It was pretty funny, man. I had to throw that out there. So, but yeah, it was cool, man. I had a good time. Met a lot of great people. Not only people in the show, but you know, guys like Frank, Bill Schultz on the Jackson team. He was there doing a seminar. The KBL guys, like I said, got to spend some time with some of those guys, talk to them, get some input on the season and, the background. Got to meet former guest Dusty Yacker. He was there working in a Hobie booth, and Lee's Global Tackle, I think is the name of that place, right? And
I'm gonna say yes.
yeah, I think that's what Lee's Global Bait and Tackle. Got to meet Dusty, so that was cool. But yeah, man, there was some interesting seminars. I know Bill Schultz was there talking about catching Door County smallies. I didn't catch the seminar, but he was telling me
Yeah, we were
about
too
it.
busy working.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was interesting. I got to talk to him a bit about it, even though I didn't hear it, and it was pretty interesting. That guy catches a lot of fish up there, both out of a kayak and a big boat. But it was cool to hear his perspectives on things, and
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah, and that's the thing too about like this. You coming out to these big fishing shows, in the big cities. I mean, Mark Zona was there, and he was talking about smallie fishing as well. There was what is it? I think John Carew was out there talking about drop shot
yeah, yeah, yeah,
tricks and stuff. Jim Sarek, I think that's how you say his name, but he's always there
sure,
talking about muskies.
yeah,
I try not to miss any of his stuff. His stuff is always good.
yeah. There was a couple muskie guys. I don't know if it was Joe Bucher was there too. I think he's got his own
Joe
lures.
Bucher was there.
Yeah, but a good friend of mine used to paint all his lures, so
Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge in that place. I mean, there's
yeah.
just so many, and plus they got the big trough, the hog
Yeah.
troughs. So everybody's, tossing baits in there and showing you how to, what the action will do and what they're
Sure.
doing at certain times of the year and
Right.
water temperature and all that good stuff. So it's nice to see that, for the people who don't have like a swimming pool to practice throwing their lures in to see what kind of action you're going to get, year round. But didn't you run into some of the Guggen squad out there?
It wasn't the Guggen squad. It was the
It's
boy,
like Peric and company, right?
yeah, the boys from AP Bassin. Peric was there earlier, and I guess he's been battling the flu or something, so he took off early. But I went to get a coffee, or no, I was over at Duke Westcamp's booth, Catch Products. I posted a photo of the new catch board. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out on Instagram or our Facebook page. But Duke can etch the paddle and fin logo onto your catch board. So if you're interested in one of those, message Duke. We don't get any money out of it. We don't want any money out of it. But if you want to, rock the paddle and fin logo, I mean, yeah, we do. But I wasn't gonna work that angle with Duke, but
it's all good.
he was kind enough because he makes all the boards for the KBL guys, and they're putting the KBL logo on it. And Duke fishes the KBL, and he's like, if anybody wants a custom logo, hit me up. And I messaged him, and I was like, hey man, what would it be to do the logo, the paddle and fin logo? And he's like, oh, dude, like I've actually caught a few of your guys' podcasts. He's like, I'd be more than happy to do it for you. And I sent him the image, and he's like, dude, this is super easy. And then it was like 10 minutes later, he sent me a proof of it actually engraved. If you're not familiar with the catch boards, they're made out of anodized aluminum, I believe it is. So it's a lightweight aluminum. What's nice about it compared to like a plastic hog trough is you don't have to color in the little lines. They're engraved and painted, I believe is how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So, your lines are never going to have to be remarked or anything like that. But he put the paddle and fin logo on it. It was super cool. So he told me, if we got any listeners that are interested in it, just message him, and he'll set it up. And, pay Duke directly. We're not putting it on our website or anything. I'll put some pictures of it on the website with a link to Catch. I'll do it that way. I'll do it in the affiliates tab. But they're great because I know my hog trough from last year is like chipped and broken and all messed up. So anyways, check out Catch Products USA. I'm leaving Duke's booth, heading back to the Rocktown booth, and I saw Sobe, Mav, Murda, and I always forget the other guy's name because he's newer to the channel, on Peric's channel. And they were just sitting there by the concessions, and I noticed Murda right away, and then I was like, oh shit, that's Sobe and Mav. So I turned around and I was like, hey, and I'm like, love what you guys do, keep on rocking it. And, we talked a bit, offered them to come on the podcast because I know they were up in Alaska this past summer, and there's a resort up there where it's only kayaks. You go out kayak fishing for, I think it was flounder in the ocean there, and they killed it. So, I don't know if that'll ever come to fruition, but, left it with them and gave them my info. But super cool, man. I know the whole Guggen squad thing gets a little backlash. Some guys like them, some guys hate them. But, I mean, my thing is like I told Sobe, he does some BA video editing, and Mav too. They get some awesome camera footage, B-roll, stuff like that. It's enjoyable to watch. It's educational, but not only that, they're bringing the young crowd in. They're younger guys, and they're getting these young kids interested in fishing and out there with fishing rods in their hands. So, and that goes for the whole Guggen squad. I'm not a fan of all of them. I'm a fan of majority of them, but I think it's cool what they do for the sport, compared to, some of the other guys out there that are complaining about them. At least they're getting the younger kids involved, and I think that's huge. Definitely huge. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know what your take is.
About the younger people, man. You got to get them out there because your legislation will vote it out.
Yeah, right.
They'll start eating away at our natural resources if we don't get younger people out there.
Sure.
And I mean, you see it every day. I see it with my own kids. It's hard, because you're going up against YouTube and Twitch and
sure,
just the phones by themselves, and like whoever's a gamer. Because when we were kids, we were brought up, we were kicked outside. Like it's funny because grounding us inside was like we would be like, no, I want to be outside. And now it's like you have to ground them outside.
Yeah, we had that conversation with a guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I remember when we were kids, man. We didn't want to come home at night. We wanted to stay outside and keep playing. And you've obviously with technology seen that switch. And those guys, they do something for that younger crowd that's encouraging. Like I said, they're younger guys. I think all of them are pretty much in their mid-20s. But the younger kids can relate to them. I try to be relatable, but I'm not always relatable. You're not always relatable, but I think that's the key about those Guggens, man. They keep it relatable, and they're getting the younger generation involved, which is huge. So applause to them for sure. But
and Peric and them, they're all local.
Yeah,
like all those guys, they're all Chicago boys. So
well, Peric,
they exploit the whole area.
Yeah,
with John B.
Yeah, Peric and John B are local, but Mav and Sobe, I think they're both from Minnesota. So because I was telling them about the home lake, and they were like, I'm not familiar, man. Where's that? So I kind of explained it. And then they were like, oh, okay, I get it. Yep, I know what you're talking about. So it was cool, man. It was cool meeting those cats. I think the one cool thing I did see was there's a company called Enigma Fishing. I saw a post like a couple days before the show started, and it wasn't related to the show. It was just some new reels that they came out with, and I guess they started with rods. Now they're doing reels, and I saw their booth, stopped in there. They kind of caught my eye, and they're buttery smooth, buttery smooth.
Did you get any?
Did I get any?
Oh my God. Well, not well. This is you should show everybody
So,
now.
yeah, let me pull one out.
Come on. Yeah.
Let me pull one out.
All right. So he dragged me over to this booth too, and I ended up talking to the dude at Arden a lot more because I'm on that team. But I did look at these, and these look really nice. They kind of remind me of they're like, I don't know, like a cross between like 13 Fishing. They got a little bit of like Daiwa, a little bit of Ardent. I mean, they're pretty nice. Which ones did you get? Like what speeds and all that, and while you're hitting the mic?
Yeah, well, I'm hitting the lever, and that thing just keeps spinning. But this particular one I'm holding is an 8.1 to 1.
Oh, that's fast.
I got two of those. I got two 7.3 to 1s. I got a flipping reel that's 7.3 to 1, and then I got I think it's like 6.5 to 1 that I'm using.
Is that gonna be like your crank?
Yeah, that'll be on my crankbait rod from Elysian. So, yeah, expect a full review on them. I think what I'm going to do for Friday's YouTube video is just kind of walk through them all. And not only that, they gave me the high speed spool bearings too.
Cool.
For free. So, and
I would just put those on.
Well, and that's the thing.
I mean, it should improve.
Without them on, it's super fast. But here, for anybody that's interested, I forgot he gave me this card. Go to enigmafishing.com. You can save 40% off Enigma reels. For casting reels, the promo code's CAST40. Spinning reels, it's SPIN40. This was a one-time use only. Show this on the screen.
It's like a scratch off almost.
Yeah, but it was a show special. So I think I'm going to order two of the spinning reels because they didn't have any of those there at the show. So I'm gonna really put them to the test this year. I was really excited about them. Just from what I saw before the show, and then once I put it in my hand and felt how smooth they were, I was kind of blown away. And I know he was telling me that the spools will hold 150 yards of 20-pound braid, I think it was, or floral, one of the two. So, I mean, it's got a nice chunky spool, but the thing about them is they're light. I mean,
yeah,
light.
They're all really nice. I liked them a lot. And, I mean, obviously you had more time with them and stuff, and I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, that whole place is just sensory overload. So, you may think you're taking it in, but I'll tell you what, there's so much going on. I mean, I'm like at one time or one moment, it's like I just got to get out in the hallway and just kind of like stare at the ceiling or something because you're like,
no,
oh, there's just so much to look at.
Well,
there's like so many companies.
I also, because the Enigma guy told me about these guys. Have you ever heard of Gamma Fishing Line?
I have heard of them.
That's all their different lines, but they're based out of Pennsylvania, and I got to talk with those guys for quite a bit, and it's interesting what they're doing. They got a fluorocarbon line that the way it's put together, molded, whatever, is a lot different than what normal line companies are doing. And it's a thinner diameter than some of the other competitors. on their floral carbon. So that was quite interesting. And then, you know, I throw a lot of braid. I usually use Suffix 832, and I had an issue, and I don't think I've ever talked about it on the podcast, where, you know, sometimes that stuff like gets wound up and you're going to cast and it snaps your line, and then you're losing a $6 lure. Like, I lost a couple chatterbaits that way this year, and they claim that their braid will not do that. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know if it's just Suffix gets weak over time or what it is, but I know that happened to me probably 4 or 5 times this year, and it was usually throwing a chatterbait. So, and I know their 40-pound braid. This is ridiculous. Because I was talking to the one guy. He tournament fishes up here in northern Illinois out of a big boat, and let me find it real quick. And he was like, I throw 40-pound braid. The 40-pound braid is the equivalent of a 10-pound mono. So that's like super thin.
So that's like I'm thinking like point was it like 0.14 something like that, like mono.
0.012 is the diameter.
1 2. See, look at that.
Yeah.
Jane knows his lines.
It says break strength is 54 pounds. So I was interested in it.
Nice.
I didn't pick any up, but they have like bulk spools. So here, this is their MSRP prices. 40-pound braid bulk spool, 600 yards is $73.99. So that's cheaper than the Suffix. And then they have a mega bulk, which is 2,500 yards, and it's $300. So
Wow, that sounds nice.
but yeah, and it was interesting talking to those guys. Like, you know, it's a question I ask a lot of people, and I ask them not because they were, you know, in a booth with fishing line, but just because they were tournament anglers. And I was asking them about braid to floral, and you know, if they do it or whatnot. And the one guy's like, I have gamma line on all my reels, and the one guy that fishes tournaments up here, he's like, I just throw straight floral. I don't like the knot. It can get caught up on stuff. It's not worth it. And not only that, but their floral is a thin diameter. So he's like, I got no reason to do it, you know? I can throw a 20-pound floral, and it's the same diameter as 10-pound test. Like, you know, why would I do that? So, and what he said made sense. So it was kind of cool talking to those guys. I know we stopped into Dave's Bait and Tackle booth. That's a bait shop located in Crystal Lake, Illinois. And we were talking to Dave, and like, Dave, I used to ride my bike to your shop when I was 13 years old to buy night crawlers, because that's when I moved into Crystal Lake. And I'm like, I'll be 37 next month. That's how long I've been buying from you. He's like, get the heck out of my booth. You're making me feel old, kid.
Yeah.
But he's a good guy, too. He does a lot of guide services up in northern Illinois and stuff. He's always put me on fish. Super knowledgeable cat. He's always talking to the anglers that stop in there. And, you know, like we were talking with him, and I think you brought it up that, because that was your first time meeting Dave, that it was great to hear that the old independently run bait and tackle shops were still around, you know. So
Oh yeah. I mean, that's huge these days. I mean, I don't know, maybe because I've been stuck in the corporate world for so long, it's like I kind of miss those mom and pop type shops.
right.
You know, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm kind of spoiled. I got Bass Pro like right in town where I live. So, I mean, and I love Bass Pro, but you know, those smaller shops, those are the ones, like those are the ones that are going to be more in touch with the local scene, you know, and what's going on, plus you get like a lot of knowledge from these older guys, or just I'm not even say older guys, just people. These shops pretty much bring in like a certain type of fisherman and or hunter, and they're able to offer you things that other people won't. Like they're not just trying to, like they know why you're at the shop. You're there to buy something. That's why you're there.
Yeah,
So
right.
they don't have to worry about selling you something like that would be as opposed to being at Bass Pro. But you're going to get some like real intel on stuff that's going on. I mean, like, what you should be throwing right now, what all the other guys are coming in and buying, especially if you're a buckethead.
Yeah.
If you're, slinging live baits. I don't do that a lot myself. That's why I kind of use that term. So if you took that bad, sorry.
Yes.
But that's what we call you guys. No,
Yeah.
but I mean, and I got no quarrels with that, of course. But I mean, I just throw lures. I'm too ADD
Yeah.
for live bait. I just,
Sure.
even if if I threw live bait, I would end up throwing a lure somewhere. So it's
Right.
like I just got to keep moving when I'm out there. But yeah, these local shops, man, I'd like to see more pop up.
Yeah.
And I get it. Things are a little different these days.
Sure.
It's harder to make it. You got to find that, that niche in that area that you want to exist. But yeah, meeting Dave, that was cool, man. I think he said 30 years, right? He's been open like over 30 years or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's longer than that. He opened the shop in, I think he said
86,
86, yeah.
86 or 87, something like
Yeah.
that. I remembered it because the Bears won
Yeah.
in 85.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's been a long time,
30
man.
some years, man. 30 some
That's,
years. And
yeah.
I'm from my place to his place now is about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour drive. But I do a lot of work out there, so if I know I need something, I'll stop in there, pick it up. Like I know this summer I bought a pair of Costas from him because I lost my other ones in the Great Fire of 17, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool, and there, like you said, there's a lot of knowledge in that shop, which is great.
Hmm.
And they're always willing to share it because they know if you're successful, you're coming
You come
back
back.
to see them.
Yeah.
And that's with any
Yeah.
bait shop, guide service, whatever. It's just good for them, and they've always been great about that. So, shout out to Dave's Bait and Tackle, and
Yeah. I'd say like, support any of these smaller shops when you can.
yeah,
I mean, they need it, they wouldn't, I mean, just think if we didn't have all these smaller shops everywhere, you would literally have to like travel all over the state
right,
to get to these bigger,
right,
not to knock Bass Pro or Gander or anything. I mean, those are, they're cool places, but I don't know. I just got a soft spot for,
sure,
mom and pop shops. I just, that's where my heart is these days. You can thank the corporate world for that, pushing me in that direction.
yeah, yeah,
Because those people matter.
right,
You just get forgotten, and I don't like seeing that. But yeah, I mean, but it was definitely, it's always awesome being at that function. Being at the fishing show, seeing everybody, seeing the new boats, even seeing, I mean, like literally the boats because we were surrounded by them. But all the new stuff that's coming out, some of your favorite companies. I mean, they were pretty much all there. There was some, really good food. There was like some wildlife that was there. There
yeah.
was like owls and hawks.
Yeah, you got a killer shot of that owl. Check that out on Jay's Instagram or Facebook page, right? It's on both.
Yeah, it's on both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was killer. We walked up and you were like, "Hey, can I get a shot?" And the
Yeah.
owl kept turning its head, didn't want to see your
Yeah.
camera, Jay. But
Yeah. It
dude,
was either that or my face.
that that bird was just beautiful, man. And it was cool.
Yeah.
They had that red tail hawk there, and then
They had like three or four different kinds of owls.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think
and I've only seen like I mean, I've seen a couple. Like owls are pretty cool because you just don't see them a lot. But I remember last year when I was down at or up at Lake Mendota, off the Madison Chain, and there was like I think it's called. You know what? I'm not even gonna fake like I know, but it was like this white and gray owl in the midst of all this greenery, just like staring at me, and I was just like so, just like oh whoa, had to like kind of stop, took a took a picture with the phone, but
Sure.
it doesn't do it justice. But it was just
Right.
neat. This thing's scoping me the whole time,
Oh yeah.
just,
Yeah.
just watching me.
Well, and you're only 2 feet away from the thing, you know.
Yeah,
How often are you going to get that close to that kind of bird? It was just unbelievable. Um, yeah,
yeah.
I thought
Birds
that
are
was
cool.
super cool. Speaking of which, that reminds me, talking about wildlife and stuff. I know I've mentioned this prior on the podcast, but I got to meet one of the Illinois conservation officers in the Rocktown booth. He was looking at getting a kayak. He wants to get out kayak fishing on his days off, and I thought that was awesome. I'm like, I thought you'd be sick of fishermen and fishing, dealing with us all the time. And he's like, no, man. He's like, you guys are all great. Yeah, you got your few bad seats, but he's like, I love it just as much as you guys do. So it was cool about that. But what I talked to him about was, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. I said, I heard, this could be a rumor. I'm not 100% sure. But the whole Asian carp situation in the Illinois River and getting up to Lake Michigan or whatever, I heard that they were going to dump a bunch of alligator gar in the river for helping control the Asian carp population. And he's like, looked at me real funny, and he was like, that sounds fishy to me. But he's like, why don't you stop by the table before you leave tonight? And the guy that would know is one of our DNR biologists. And man, I wish I remembered these guys' names because they were super nice, just full of information. And so I did so on my way out the door. I stopped at the booth and I waited as the gentleman was finishing up with somebody, and the officer was there. And the officer looks at him and he goes, this guy's got a kind of a strange question, I think. But I told him you would be the guy that would know the answer. So I presented the question to him, and he said, well, actually, that's part true. And I was like, what do you mean by part? And he said, so we're dumping alligator gar back into the river to rebuild the alligator gar population. In doing so, yes, the alligator gar will actively seek out the Asian carp, but that is not the exact reason why we're putting the alligator gar back into the river. Just the numbers are low, and they want to rebuild that population because I believe they're native to that river, if I'm not mistaken. But he said, yeah, the gar will definitely eat them, but that's not the exact reason why we're doing it. I also asked him about Kentucky Lake. I said, do you know anything about the Kentucky Lake situation? And he goes, I hear it's pretty bad from folks I've talked to. I said, well, do you know if they're doing anything about it or what their plans are to do about it? And he said that I couldn't answer for you, but I'm sure they're working on something just like we are. But he answered that question, and he was super knowledgeable, super friendly, super nice. He wasn't like, what the heck are you talking about? Get the heck out of here. And that's the thing, anytime I've encountered any DNR officer in any state, they're always friendly. If you're a jerk to them, they'll be a jerk back to you. But,
Sure.
So respect
Yeah.
those guys, man. They're just trying to protect our resources. So shout out to the Illinois DNR for taking the time to, answer that, because it was literally at show close and they could have walked out the door, but they sat and talked with me for a good 15-20 minutes. So, and I don't think I told you that, but it was super cool to chat with them about that whole scenario. So
Yeah. So a couple things, your points. So Kentucky Lake, as anyone knows, like if you've ever fished it, it's awful. I mean, in terms of the Asian carp,
yeah,
we've all run into huge, huge schools. I mean, I've never seen so many swoops on a fish finder before. So many people fall hooking them with crankbaits, and it's just insane. But I actually saw a post, I think it was today, where there was there was a guy, I don't know, these are like some fishermen. I don't know if they're sanctioned by the DNR or what they're doing, but this dude like had like 100 and like 15,000 pounds of fish on his boat.
Yeah.
There were just carp all on the inside. I mean, it was nuts. But they're all like the Asian carp, and it consists of like four different carps. If you don't know what the Asian carp are,
Sure.
one of them actually is called Asian carp, and then there's like the silver carp or something. I don't know all
Yeah. I don't
four of
know 'em
them. I'm
all.
not a big carp guy, but they are everywhere, and they're kind of like the swine of the water.
Sure.
They reproduce so quick. It's hard to make a dent. But I remember there was the DNR, the Illinois DNR, put out some kind of a publication, just kind of telling everybody to start expecting. This is a few years ago.
Sure.
Start expecting to see 4, 5, and 6 foot gar, because they're eating the Asian carp. I imagine, and I don't know if that's like just the regular gar or alligator gar, but I imagine at one point you're not going to be able to bowfish these things anymore, until we get this, get the Asian carp under wraps, and in control. But I would expect to see that legislation come down the pike eventually too, because if they are making a dent, and they know this because they've opened these things up,
Sure.
and they found loaded with carp, with
Yeah.
these Asian carp. So, but yeah, I mean, if that comes on the pike, just be wary of that. So, I mean, even if you're a bow fisherman and listen to this, try to be able to identify and like maybe just not kill the car or kill the gars. I mean, just let them do their thing, because where I fish, there's a ton of them.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't even know what they were at first until I figured it out, because they're usually in the middle of the river hitting like the little fish, but they'll come right up to the boat, and I didn't know what they were until I actually saw them.
Sure.
And this year I'll be fly fishing for some. I
Yeah.
found a really cool way to fly fish for them. It's a secret until I tell everybody later on. Once I catch one.
Yeah.
But it's a really unique way, I can tell you that, and it's not what you think.
Nice.
Like it's, I can tell it's going to be definitely different, but they're a unique creature, man. They got it, and they're real interesting. I've never eaten one. I've only caught like 2 in my time with cut bait. But I mean, if they can control Asian carp, please do so.
Yeah, right. And that was kind of my stance on it too. Like, if it's gonna help, I'm all for it, man. And I mean, I've never personally caught a gar. That's a bucket list fish, and I know my buddy Thomas. He did not know. I just saw him Saturday night, and we were talking about it because I believe he heard the first time that I had mentioned alligator gar and the carp situation, and he had texted me. He's like, "What's an alligator gar?" And I'm like, "Dude, just Google search it. You'll see 8 million pictures." And excuse me. And he texted me back. He's like, "I want to catch one of those. Those are some bad mothers." And I was like, "Yeah, dude." I'm like, they get huge down in Texas and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they're a unique fish. They're like sturgeon, right? They're a prehistoric fish. And
Yeah, they're nuts, man. Their outer skin is crazy tough.
yeah, and that's the thing about them. Nothing will really mess them up. So, yeah, it was very cool. Like I said, that the DNR, came up and talked about it and all that stuff. So, who else did we talk to? Talked to a gentleman up in Canada. Do you remember that guy's name off the top of your head?
I don't have its card with me. Yeah, they ran a charter
They got a
out
lodge,
of
up
yeah,
on
well, it's
Eagle Lake, Ontario.
lodge on an island, right? Yeah, it looked
Yeah,
really cool. It's I don't know Canada that well. I just know that it's basically right above Wisconsin.
yeah.
From
It's
I
pretty
think
much
you know better.
yeah, it's pretty much straight north of International Falls, Minnesota. But
Okay, that's not
well,
Wisconsin.
no, because you kind of go. International
Yeah,
Falls is over the point, that
yeah,
upper point, which is above Wisconsin. It's pretty much up by Dryden. If anybody knows where that is. I've fished Eagle Lake once when I was 19. Great walleye fishery, awesome smallmouth. There's big pike in there, and some big muskies as well. So,
Yeah, it
yeah,
looked amazing.
yeah, and we were talking to him because we were like, "You ever have guys come up on kayaks?" And he's like, "No, usually guys rent our boats and this and that." And he's like, and then he was telling us about a river or a stream that comes drains out of the lake right there next to his lodge, and he was telling us that him and one of his staff floated it one day, and they basically tried to get as far as they could. I think it was like 15 miles, but he said the cool thing about it was is there was like 9 lakes along that float that they were just paddling, they weren't fishing, but he's like that whole thing is just chocked full of fish and it doesn't get hit much because you got to be in a canoe or a kayak, small boat in order to get through parts of that river. So, me and Jay were talking to him, and we'll see what happens there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think we're gonna have him on the show too, right?
yeah, we talked about having him on, and he said he'd be up for a podcast. I think it'd be cool to, talk to our fellas to the north, and
Yeah, that'd be a unique perspective.
oh
Yeah,
Canada. Um,
the only part he knows.
yeah, that is.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be a unique perspective. I mean, that's there's a lot of fish up there that they fish for. Like, I guess I would say like unconventionally. Like you don't have to really like troll for a lot of those fish.
Yeah.
You can really just get out there and cast for them.
Yeah. Yep.
Those big old walleyes, the pike, the muskie. They
Eagle.
even got like what steelheads up there and everything too, right? And they
Uh,
got trout up there as well.
it's trout.
Oh, not
But
quite the steelhead
yeah,
size.
I
Still,
know.
though, variety is insane up there in Canada.
Right, right, and I know Eagle Lake is a real rocky lake. Um, the one thing about that lake, when you're in a big boat, is there's a lot of boulders that are the size of houses, that
Oh
are
wow.
just under the water, and some of them aren't marked. They'll be marked on like a Navionics or something like that, but you got to be super careful up there because you could rip the lower unit off your boat super easy. So, some of those areas where it's shallow like that, that holds huge smallies, pike,
Oh yeah.
muskie. So for kayak guys, that would be huge to get into some of those spots, that don't get hit. So, but
Yeah, we'll
yeah,
have to check that out. Like,
yeah, it was super cool. We'll have to post his info somewhere. But yeah, if anybody's looking at going up to Canada, um, his lodge is beautiful. They get you on some solid fish. We saw a bunch of photographs. I know Jay was drooling over the pike pictures. I want to go. I want to go.
yeah, I just need more time.
Yeah, I know. But
Oh,
yeah, it was super cool, man. I don't know. Did you talk to anybody else? Like products, anything you saw that were interesting?
I mean, like, honestly, I was kind of like all business while I was there for the
Sure.
most part.
Yeah.
I remember being kind of exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you were there like every day, and like I only had 2 days worth, and I was like, oh my Lord.
Oh,
I was like,
I'll say this. I saw wind grips there. They make grips for fishing rods. Um, and this is kind of an announcement. As you guys know, I'm on the Elysian fishing rod team, and they've been working on a kayak rod. And I don't really think I've ever seen the wind grips up close and personal, until the show. I know Luz has got a style of them. I don't know if they're made by Win, but I know the new kayak specific rods from Elysian are going to have those wind grips on. And I was super impressed. And not only that, the guy in wind grips was telling me that they have like a tape that you could wrap around your cork rods to convert it to the actual wind grip. What it is it's kind of like a rubbery-ish type grip. And I said, well, how is this when it gets wet? Because obviously in kayaks our rods are getting wet, stuff like that. And he said when it gets wet, it gets even tackier. And it doesn't get
It's like a tennis grip almost,
yeah,
like baseball.
yeah, or similar to some golf club grips.
Sure.
So it was super interesting talking to him, and I didn't know that they sold that tape that you could wrap around like an EVA foam grip or a cork grip, something like that. So it was cool seeing those. I chatted with that gent for a few, and you know, I'm gonna have the kayak specific rods at the upcoming shows. I'll post some pictures. I'm supposed to get them right around next week sometime. So when those come out, they're going to be released the middle of February. So if you guys are looking for a kayak specific rod, reach out. I can tell you what the specs are. I believe there's 5 different rods in the casting series, and the same thing for the spinning series. But it was cool seeing the wing grips. That was one other thing I did see while I was there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it was it was good for you. You got a lot more exposure out there than I did. Sounds like you visit a lot more people.
I'll tell you what, man.
I mean,
standing on concrete for 8-9 hours a day for 4 days in a row will make your legs and feet real sore. But it was worth it.
Dense concrete.
It was worth it, man. It was definitely worth it because like I said, man, I met a lot of cool people. I know there's a lot of new listeners to the podcast from that show. We were handing out stickers and, talking to the podcast, especially to the guys and gals. That was the thing too. There was a lot of women that were like, I want to get into this. And I, told the story of the gentleman that I mentioned at the beginning of the pod that learned a lot just from listening to the show. And people were like subscribing on like iTunes and, other platforms. And they're like, I'm going to listen. I want to learn about this stuff. And I said, we talk to all kinds of people, share our experiences, things like that. So that was cool, man. But we got we're going to be at 2 separate shows coming up in 2 weeks? Not this coming weekend, the weekend after, right?
Yeah, the weekend of
February,
what is it, the 8th and
8th,
stuff?
9th, and 10th. I'll be at the Rockford Boat and Fishing Show in Northern Illinois. That's right by I-90 and East Riverside Boulevard at the Sports Corps Complex. I'll be there with Rocktown. It's maybe 10 minutes south of the Wisconsin border. From the Chicagoland area, it's about an hour and 20, hour and a half maybe, depending on where you're coming from. Where are you going to be, Jay? Down in Tinley Park, right?
Yeah, I'll be in Tinley Park, Illinois at the Tinley Park Fishing Show. It's actually at the high school, which is really unique. But I'll be helping out Fluid Fun, Canoe, and Kayak.
Okay.
They're out of Indiana. I forget what town, but I've helped these guys out before. And there's actually a pool there. So what's cool about this venue is you get to actually try out and like demo some of the kayaks that you're interested in. Of course, it is a pool, so it's not that big, but at least it'll give you an idea of how it floats and what the stability is like. You could still pedal around in there too. It's kind of funny because when you get because the Hobies will be in there, I know that for sure, and then you'll have Jacksons and native watercraft and it's kind of funny just watching the organized chaos of it all. But it's a good way to get out there and really try out some of these yaks. But yeah, it's a unique environment too because it's in a high school, but let me tell you, they use every square inch of this place. I mean, it's pretty amazing how much stuff gets crammed in there. And this is more it's a fishing show, but it's kind of an outdoor show too. They even have deer. They bring deer there and stuff that you can pet. And yeah, dude, it's crazy. I usually get caught up over there. I was got a little fixation with big wild animals.
What about pedal drive kayaks? You could test those out in the pool too?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, anything. yeah, you got, like I said, you got the Hobies. You'll have any of the FDs and like I said, native watercraft, whatever. I guess Fluid Fun's going to bring. They
Sure.
have a pretty good selection of stuff, but yeah, it's a good time out there. Like I said, it's cheap too. It's not expensive by any means, and there's good food there. There's good deals. What I like about this one is it's kind of like, so we do the Chicago show. You get all the big names and all that stuff, but then you
Sure.
come to this show,
You
you
got
still got some pretty big names, but
you got the local
you've got like
guys.
regular people. Yeah, like
Yeah.
local people who have small, small companies and who have helped out too in the past. But like I said, it's a unique perspective, and I think it gets you a little closer to the community. It's as well, and it's kind of cool. And then you should like they cram a bunch of bass boats in there too, so that's interesting. like
Nice.
all all the bass boats and stuff, but with all the snow, it should be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
I really love going from that really far parking lot
Yeah.
and
Right.
walk
Right.
over to the high school.
Right.
It's pretty brutal here right now, so
Right on. Right on. Well,
but yeah.
Jay will have some paddle and fin stickers down there, handing
Yep.
those out. I'll have some at the Rockford show, and then are you doing Madison, or you're just coming up?
What's that?
Are you doing the Madison show, or are you just coming up there to hang out?
I don't even know yet.
Okay.
I mean, I gotta look at the schedule and see what's going on.
Madison show is the end of February.
It's Canoecopia, right?
No,
No?
Canucopia is beginning of March.
Okay,
So
so
Madison Fishing Show is February 22nd, 23rd, 24th.
okay, gotcha.
Canucopia is like a big paddle sports show, which is March 8th, 9th, and 10th. So
All right.
I'll be at Canucopia just walking around. I won't be in a booth with anybody unless bonafide gets at me. Hit me up, bonafide. Uh, but
Shameless plug.
yeah, but I'll be in the Rocktown booth at both shows, Madison and Rockford. So come check us out. I know I've heard that Rockford they had a pool in the past. I'm not 100% sure if they're going to have one this year. So that's something I'll find out and we'll talk about on the next pod before it comes up. But yeah, should be good. So you got
Yeah.
anything else to add to this, my man?
No, man, I'm good. I'm good. Like I said, it was just fun. It was great meeting everybody. Some of the newcomers, and kind of just, getting the word out there about kayak fishing and, all that other good stuff.
Absolutely.
And I know I'm going to see you this weekend. We're going to do a little ice fishing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
Purse is going to come out too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Scotty
Oh, yeah,
Purrs.
Pursey.
Uh, yeah. I was like so beside myself because I've had all my gear rigged up. We've had all the warm weather in the north. I've been like just chomping at the bit. I got out once this year, and then it was like finally ice is safe. Can't go. Got to be at the fishing show, and it was well worth it. I'm not complaining, but I would have liked to have gone ice fishing. But on my way home this evening, I drove down to the lake, and there was like 5 shacks out. So, and they're out in the center of the lake, so the lake is now solid, so we can get to my secret spots out there. So,
Yeah, we're going to
AK,
try to do a catch and cook too, so
yeah,
hopefully.
yeah, AKA the brush piles, which everybody knows where they are anyway.
Yeah,
But
they're such a secret.
yeah, no, that's where they, we're gonna hope to get into some crappie, some gills, and some northern pike. So it should be good. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we'll be filming some of that. But yeah, yeah. So I know we did a quick announcement right before the fishing show started. Rocktown is doing a 20% off deal for Paddle and Fin listeners when we're doing the fishing shows. So those dates that I just mentioned, the Paddle and Fin code will be good for 20% off all your kayak fishing accessories. Promo code is all caps, Paddle Fin 20. So take advantage, guys. I know I saw the new NRS Chinook. I'm going to pick one of those things up. I don't know if you saw it at the show.
Cool. Those are nice.
But, paddles, PFDs, Yak Attack stuff, new canoe accessories, Jackson stuff, you name it. That'll work for it. It won't work on boats, but it'll work for all your accessories and stuff. And then I know our man over at Hammered Lures, he's still running his promo code for Paddle and Fin listeners, and that's PNF20. Save you 20% off on some awesome plastic baits. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
You guys can follow us at paddle, the letter N, in fin.com. Jay posted a blog. That's up there. I'll have some new blogs going up as well in the very near future. Our store is on there as well if you want to get a t-shirt, hoodie, something of that nature. And if you guys ever have a question or comment, want us to talk about something, email us, paddle, the letter N, and fin at gmail.com, or go to the Anchor podcast app. Leave us a voicemail. You can play it on an episode, answer your question. It'll be like you're calling in live. So I think that's about it, my man. Until next time, guys, tight lines and smooth paddling.